We do this every seminar. We go through a quick market update of how the market is doing, where we think it's going to go. And this week, we've actually just had another supersized rate hike. So we've seen the market pull back a bit.
Yeah.
After the last two rate hikes, we've seen it pull back. And now, even though it's slowing, what we can say about it is these numbers are year to date on the screen here, by the way. They're not, August 2000 or August 2021 to August 2022. So year to date, we're still going to see increases in 2022 from 2021 once the year is finished. And you can see these increases. Well, Vancouver has fallen quite a bit in total sales. We chalk that up to price and inventory. They're not building anything near as fast as we are in Calgary here. And their price just went so high so fast. Their market is kind of tanking. Toronto is kind of holding its own. They're still up almost 10% over 2021. What we do want you to see, though, is this middle column here, the average price. Take a look at those two big cities compared to Calgary.
Yeah, and this is why we're so confident in the Calgary market. I mean, we've done a whole video on why you should invest in Calgary. It's on our YouTube channel. As soon as you land on the channel, it's on there. We made sure of that. There's multiple reasons, but this is a no-brainer. And Tim and I have worked with so many people from BC and Ontario this year that we can't even believe. They're buying properties on FaceTime. They're hiring us to choose the properties for them. And this is why. We just had a policeman in Hamilton. I'm not sure if Ashley's on the call tonight. If you are, Ashley, welcome. He gave up his job in Hamilton, Ontario, made a killing on his house out there, and basically came here and bought a house with cash. And now he's set. He's got a young family, and you just look at the prices, like $521,000. We have felt for the longest time that Calgary is nowhere near where it should be. Nowhere near it. We're talking minimum $650,000 average. So if you're in an average community here in Calgary with a detached home, that home should be worth $650,000. Will it take 2 years, 3 years to get there? My guess is less than 5 years, Tim, just because people are getting squeezed out of the Ontario and BC markets, and we already see this. They're already moving to Alberta. So it's very, very exciting to see what's happening here.
Yeah, just imagine yourself a young person or a young couple coming out of college in your early mid-20s. Back then, could you afford a $1.1, $1.2 million house? Probably not. So a lot of those kids are coming out here, or even people are downsizing, like Azad said, coming out here, or just straight across trading, because if you sell your house for 1.2 and then buy one cash for 528 or 521, sorry, you've got an awful lot of cash in the bank. So it makes really good financial sense for people to do this from those two areas in particular.
Yeah. Before we keep going here, if you have any questions, please put it in the chat. We will get to it. There's no problem putting it in the chat at all. But what's going to happen when there's interest rate rises like this? And this is why people need to belong to an investment group, because you really get to understand how the cycles go. We go through these glitches or these little ups and downs every so often. I think we've gone through it twice, 3 times this year. This year we had the crazy COVID thing going on where everyone was buying. I think every one of our investors made close to $100,000 this year. And now the market's a little bit soft, and you need to understand what's going on in Calgary. The market isn't really going down because we have supply issues, and the supply cannot catch up. Like Tim and I are waiting on properties to hit the market, and unfortunately, one hit the market in North Haven on Friday, and we text one of our buyers who's after a fourplex. This thing came on for $650,000. The lot was unbelievable, Tim.
It was a side-by-side duplex.
Side-by-side duplex, which we would go in and turn into a fourplex, and it'd probably be worth close to $1 million after all said and done. It came on for $650. It sold in 1 day, like 1 day. And our poor client was camping or something. And he's like, let's go see it on Monday. And I went to go book it on Monday, and guess what? It's gone. So the good properties, they're gone straight away. They're not even sticking around. Tim picked up a beauty for young Ryan last week. half duplex came on in Ogden,
Too far.
and we had to jump on it. Like Tim, it came on, we saw it the next day, we bought it straight away. So at least with Ryan, he's bought properties with us before, he understands the process. He's educated, so he can make those decisions. And that's unfortunately how quick you have to be in this market. So people are thinking, oh, the market might be slowing down. If you're after an investment property, it's not, okay? And where people got caught out just quickly is during COVID, they went out and speculated on crazy properties, like brand new half duplexes out near the airport with basement suites for $650,000. And when you look at those properties, they're never going to cash flow. So our number one rule is when we're buying any property at all, it has to cash flow from day one and not with inflated rental prices, right, Tim?
Yes.
You can't just read what the rental rates will be. And if the builder or the developer is offering rental guarantees, buyer beware, because we know they're offering those rental guarantees. And guess what you're doing with those rental guarantees? You're paying for those rental guarantees in your purchase price. So you're paying yourself to pay yourself, right? And then guess what's happening to those properties right now? They're the ones going down $50,000, $60,000. And these poor Ontario buyers that were buying, not through us, because there's no way we're going to do that. When we're buying properties with our clients, we're making sure it's going to work 100%. But they're the properties that are going down because they were never worth that much to start with. And that's what really gets us upset. We've seen one of these duplexes sell 3 times to an Ontario buyer. It came on for $550. They sold it to another Ontario buyer for $600, and then they sold it again for $636. And now it's probably back down to where it was originally. Okay, so you have to work with the right people. I just get fired up about that. Sorry.
There's a quick question in the chat here. It says, are those numbers specific for detached homes, or they also include multifamily properties? And it says, can you elaborate on the different increases on the slide? I'm confused about the 26 or minus 26. These average prices are average prices for all housing types in the 3 markets year to date. So it's from January 1st to yesterday, 2022, the increase over last year or the decrease. And in the last column, the percent increase, it's the percent increase in the listings. So the number of listings, you can see Calgary's is 4,800, Vancouver's is 32, and Toronto's is 56. That's the number of listings that are on the market right now, compared to the number of listings that were on the market in the beginning of September in 2021. You can see in every market, the number of listings has dropped significantly, like minus 26, minus 17, and minus 34. That's a supply issue. That's why we don't see our prices falling, you know, by a ton. Because if there were the same amount of listings year to year, you would see the average price fall just because of, you know, there's less demand, more supply. So the tight supply all across Canada is keeping the prices high. So that's the numbers.
And as an investor, you need to understand that. You need to understand supply levels definitely affect the price, okay? When there's oversupply, like Tim, when we were down there years ago near the hospital, we were just talking about it the other day, the condos down near the Ralph Klein Hospital in, where is that? Seaton. There were too many condos. It was people wanted to buy down there. We were nervous to buy because when you have something like 5,000 units come on, it's going to be harder to rent out. It's going to soften prices. But that's no longer. And guess what's happening to the condo market? The condo market's actually doing well, finally. And the reason why it's doing well is because rental rates went through the roof. Okay, and it's impossible to find rental properties. Absolutely impossible. So once that happens, the lower, the cheaper properties out there, they become more attractive to people that would normally rent, and now they're forced to buy, and they're going to stay in their price range. So now we're seeing bidding wars on townhouses. Townhouses have gone up at least 10 to 15% this year. And now the condos behind us, we're seeing them go, Tim, they've gone up like 60, 70 grand on some of these properties. So
some of the older inventory. Yeah.
Inventory. So it's very, very exciting in Calgary, especially with inventory this low as well.
Okay, so that's our little market update, basically year-to-date numbers. What we're going to do now is we're going to bring Danielle on, and she'll give us a bit of a mortgage market update. Unfortunately, Danielle's got bad news about rates that they're higher than they were 2 months ago. Go ahead, Danielle.
Shocker. I know we're all surprised, right? Funny enough. So to quickly touch on your tip Tuesday there, it is definitely critical when you're starting the process to do your evaluation, like you guys mentioned. Sometimes it's the hardest part because sometimes we get people that are quite afraid or nervous or what's my credit score or can I qualify? But the bottom line is if you're dreaming big and you're wanting to invest, you need to make sure you do that evaluation first so you have a realistic picture of where you're at. So when we talk, we do a full deep dive into finances. We estimate future and projected incomes to see, okay, in 2-3 years, where do you think your income is going to be? How is that going to affect your investment process and your investment plan? How many properties do you want to accumulate? What are your personal goals? Or do you want to move slowly? Would you rather move quickly? And then we take all of that information and come back to you with a tentative plan that says, okay, based on your current income, this is how many properties we can do within a timeline, your projected income, this is how many properties. We look at, okay, what lenders can we use in what order? So we set it up properly. How much down payment do we need on the first couple here? Where are we going to end up on 3 and 4? So you have an idea of what you need to save or invest in order to accumulate enough down payment to buy the properties that you want as well. So that is critical. It is the biggest part and the start to your process to give you a realistic idea of what's possible. And then to touch on what you guys just said is inventory. Yeah, inventory in the rental space is down right now. It's a bit tough to find those, and Tim and Azad are fantastic about being patient and writing it out and making sure they're finding the right ones and writing offers on the right ones. But a lot of it has to do with interest rates. So even though, if the rates continue to rise, what we're seeing is emotional buyers or first-time home buyers. We're seeing them get a little bit nervous and kind of sit back and say, okay, I'm out for a little bit. I might continue to rent. So that hopefully will open up a bit more of a space for us investors again, where we're looking more at, bottom lines. And a perfect example is tonight's seminars. How can we maximize rents even though rates are rising, which means payments are rising? We're not necessarily focusing on what is exactly my monthly payment every single month, what is exactly my interest rate. We're looking at the end goal. How much is my property going to appreciate? How can I get my tenants to cover my mortgage payments and pay them down? So by having these rate increases, it's actually, causing these emotional buyers that are also causing these property prices to rise because they were the ones that were, in scooping up those properties in COVID like crazy overpriced because they're emotional buyers. It's going to leave a space for investors who are looking at bottom lines. So hopefully that's going to help us a little bit. And as a quick side note, we are hoping that OSFI, for those of you that don't know, OSFI governs the rules and regulations that are set out. They're the Office of the Superintendent of Financial Institutions. They're the ones who have implemented this lovely stress test that we keep talking about. So we're hoping that they're going to adjust the stress test now that we've seen rates come up. And right now, for example, you have to add 2% to whatever the interest rate is to qualify. So this is also causing some of those home buyers to kind of be pushed out of the market a little bit or reevaluate what they're buying because they can't qualify, which again is making room for investors again. So hopefully by, adjusting these OSFI rules, we're also going to be able to see people maybe qualify for more again than they currently can. But as a result, we're not really seeing prices drop right now. And again, that speaks back to that, supply. There's just not enough supply and there's still that demand. So we need to be patient. We need to ride it out. We need to not necessarily stress about the interest rates as much when we're investors and kind of focus on that end goal. And Tim and Azad come up with that amazing plan and cash flow analysis for you guys that shows you why investing right now, even though rates are a little bit higher, is still a good idea. And just a quick tidbit for you guys. I know some of you have had a chance to listen to the news, some of you haven't, but it was announced today that September 19th is a new federal holiday, Queen's Day. So this is something to be mindful of for anybody that is taking possession upcoming. September 19th, you cannot have possession on anymore. So we have Labor Day, we have Truth and Reconciliation Day, and we have Queen's Day now in September. So 3 holidays. So we've seen a lot of amendments flying around, which was kind of interesting today and kind of funny because anybody that had a possession date on that date is now having to adjust their possession. So for any of you that have bought a house or are closing on a home, just be mindful of your possession date. If it is on that date, you're going to have to adjust that. And one last quick item to touch on, rate-wise is fixed versus variable. We're fielding a lot of calls, even from investors as well. Do we stick with our variable? Do we lock into a fixed? Common consensus seems to be that rates on the fixed side are going to come down 12, 18, 24 months down the road. What that's going to do is allow people to continue to ride out this variable, stick with the variable, and then potentially lock in down the road at a lower fixed rate. Keeping in mind, anytime you're investing in properties, before you lock in, before you do anything, you need to have a conversation about what is your intent with the property. It can't just be about rates. So if you're doing a BRRRR strategy or a flip, and it's not a long-term hold, we don't want you to get into a fixed rate, even though it might be enticing because you're seeing variables go up. We don't want you to get into that fixed rate because any savings on interest rate or payment is going to be completely eaten up by penalties and other things like that. So when you're talking about rates, if you have any questions, just reach out, because there's a few more questions we need to ask you before we tell you, okay, do you lock in or do you not? But common consensus seems to be fixed rates are going to come down 12, 18 to 24 months, which means ride out the variable and then lock in if you want down the road. So long and short of it is it's still a great time to buy for investors. Don't be scared off by the interest rates. Hopefully that's actually going to scare those emotional buyers away and make room for us as investors to kind of start picking up some more properties. And that is it for today.
Thanks, Danielle. There's one question in the chat here. Can you get a 30-year mortgage for rental properties?
Yeah, for sure you can. So
there's another one that says, can you refinance a rental from 25 to 30 years?
yeah, absolutely. So when we're talking about that strategic plan, we actually have some clients who already own properties who we redo those mortgages to make it more advantageous to help cash flow those properties as well as potentially qualify for more. So if you're in a property and you've paid it down, let's say you have 17 years left and you want to buy another property, well, maybe we take that property, we extend out the amortization, we pull out some equity for down payment. You know, we play around with all those scenarios, but yeah, 30 years is still possible. It's possible on conventional mortgages only though. So that means 20% down payment or more, or on a refinance where you already own the home. But yeah, we can look at 30 years. We can look at taking out equity, extending amortizations. That increases your cash flow, lowers your payment, and helps your qualifying on properties. So all of that we kind of chat about when we're doing that in-depth dive. And even as you go, you know, we need to reevaluate as you go throughout the process. Once you accumulate 2-3 properties, how do we set up the next one? Has there been any changes in legislation? Has your situation changed? Can we do things differently, or should we do things differently for the next property, or redo mortgages we've, you know, that on properties that you already own? So, yep. But long and story short, yes, 30 years is definitely available. It's still alive and kicking.
Awesome. Thanks, Danielle.
Yeah, you're welcome, you guys.
Yeah, and if anyone has any questions for Danielle, her email's right there. Just take it down, take a screenshot, and give her a buzz, send her a text, send her an email. She is awesome. We've worked with Danielle for since 2006, and she really does amazing with our clients. So definitely worth speaking to her.